Every Memorial Day here in the United States, and most countries have similar celebrations, there is a very plain truth we all have to face up to. Here it is. You and I are alive and well and free today because someone else died for us. The reason we don't live under the terrors of the Nazi swastika is because someone else died for us during World War II. The only reason we don't have a fragmented, broken up USA is because soldiers died for us in the Civil War. Soldiers died to get that Berlin Wall down. They died for us in Vietnam. They died for us in the Persian Gulf. And so, at least once a year, we pause to remember all of the brave, selfless people who have given their lives in combat for you, and for me, and for all of us who are living. It's a bit hypothetical, but I guess it would be possible to turn down that gift. No, we say, don't die for me. I don't accept that. My pride or my stubbornness or my streak of do it myself won't permit it. I'll earn my own liberty. And we march in a protest parade instead on the other side of Lafayette Park. In this great parable in Matthew chapter 22, the price of the banquet has already been paid. Someone else already died to pay the way for each of us. The cross of Jesus is our own Memorial Day reminder, isn't it? But now our attention turns to the wedding robe also provided by the King. He mailed out to every would-be attendee a brand new custom-filled tuxedo or $2,000 wedding dress from the designers in Paris. And that wedding gown is the righteousness of Jesus Christ. To be in the wedding hall and in order to remain there in the presence of the King, every person in attendance absolutely must have on this robe of Christ's righteousness. In the Matthew 22 story told by Jesus, there was one man who, for whatever reason, had disdained the elegant wedding robe provided to him. I don't need it, he must have said to himself. What I've got on is fine. And he went in the front door wearing his own clothes and soon found himself out in the back alleyway with the trash dumpsters and the empty soda cans and the rats and maybe even the hotel incinerator. But now this debate point. Is this wedding robe, which we know is the righteousness of Jesus Christ, something that simply covers up our badness? Or is this robe a righteousness which Jesus actually gives us and which honestly transforms us, makes us good and holy like Him? If it's the former, you would wonder why anyone would ever reject it. If it's the latter, if this robe is righteousness and holiness, which actually gets inside of us and makes us Christ-like, then many believers begin to worry and doubt and fret because that doesn't seem to be happening very quickly in their lives. What if the King throws them out too? So this parable raises an important and practical question. Is this robe of Jesus something which covers up our wickedness? Or is it a garment which actually makes us good? Do you know something? I'd like to suggest that the answer is yes. Yes to both questions. Yes, the robe of Jesus is a pure and spotless garment which covers up our great sinfulness. It qualifies us for heaven because of Calvary. And yes, the robe of Jesus' righteousness is a miraculous gift which also gets inside a person and touches the heart. Just like a tuxedo on a homeless person or a vagrant bum seems to bring out that person's best qualities, the wedding robe in this story is Christ reaching down into our hearts and making us really good, truly good from the inside out. It is not legal fiction where the whole universe has to forever pretend that wicked people are really okay after all. So may I suggest to you that the wedding garment is both. Furthermore, and this point is extremely important, in both interpretations, the robe is a gift from God. As the robe covers us, That is God's gift. And the robe transforms us. That robe is his gift too. Here's Ezekiel chapter 36, verse 24, which demonstrates the internal working of this wedding present. I will give you a new heart and put a new spirit in you. I will remove from you your heart of stone and give you a heart of flesh. Jesus, speaking to his disciples in John chapter 14, encouraged them with this motivation. If you love me, keep my commandments. Paul, writing about the inner workings of this wonderful gift robe, says this in Romans chapter 12. Do not conform any longer to the pattern of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And he goes on to emphasize the gift aspect of the robe with this powerful promise in Philippians chapter 2. It is God who works in you to will and to act according to his good purpose. What an incredible gift this robe is. It's free on both counts as it covers and it also transforms. This amazing, generous king really does it all, doesn't he? I like a quote from C.S. Lewis in Mere Christianity, where he says this, after the first few steps in the Christian life, we realize that everything which really needs to be done in our souls can only be done by God. He goes on to say a word of encouragement for any person who may worry that this gift robe isn't doing what it's supposed to, that it's covering but not transforming. Notice, and ironically, this is from a chapter entitled Counting the Cost. The practical upshot is this. On the one hand, God's demand for perfection need not discourage you in the least in your present attempts to be good, or even in your present failures. Each time you fall, he will pick you up again. And he knows perfectly well that your own efforts are never going to bring you anywhere near perfection. On the other hand, you must realize from the outset that the goal towards which he is beginning to guide you is absolute perfection. And no power in the whole universe, except you yourself, can prevent him from taking you to that goal. That is what you are in for. But what about the person who looks at himself in the mirror without the robe of Christ and says, I think I'm all right, as is. I look okay. I'm dressed for the feast with my own wardrobe. The same book has a word of warning there as well. If you are a nice person, if virtue comes easily to you, beware. If you mistake for your own merits what are really God's gifts to you through nature, and if you are contented with simply being nice, you are still a rebel. And all those gifts will only make your fall more terrible, your corruption more complicated, your bad example more disastrous. The devil was an archangel once. His natural gifts were as far above yours as yours are above those of a chimpanzee. End of quote. During my years of radio broadcast ministry, we received a letter from a woman who'd had ties to our media ministry for quite a while. This letter described her spiritual journey, which was very interesting. But then she suddenly made the statement that at the present time, she was living a life that was free from sin. She was no longer sinning, she wrote. Now, to be honest, in the very same paragraph, she did say that God had given her this gift, and she listed several sins that she simply does not commit anymore. Not once in a while, not ever. Soon she felt led by God, she wrote, to leave her church. Now she only kept company with others like her who were having the experience of living a perfect life completely free from sin. Why should I associate, she asked, with people making 20 grand a year when I can be in the $1 million club? Because as she looked at herself, she truly felt that she had attained perfection. Now let me be careful here in concluding, because God promises to give us the gift of Christ's righteousness. He promises to give us that. That's biblical truth. But when a person looks into his or her own soul and sees perfection there, What a temptation it might be to go to the wedding feast wearing your own clothes. And so many of us in the church have to fight the temptation every single day of our lives of thinking our own wardrobe is good. The foolish man in Matthew chapter 22 must have thought that. I worked hard for these clothes, he said. I've obeyed God my whole life. Why should I accept this gift outfit, which is the same as admitting I'm a naked wretch on my own? I won't do it. In a way, that's like celebrating Memorial Day without wanting any connection with the sacrifice that made it possible. Give me my barbecue and my swimming pool and my TV with the ball games. Give me the shopping malls and the internet and the goodies of the American or Canadian lifestyle, but I don't want to acknowledge my debt to the man who bled and died. I don't need him. I don't want him. And the Christian who says, I really don't need the sun in his robe, but I do want the free banquet. How's it going to be with us? Pastor Morris Venden, in his classic Wedding Garment Sermon, puts these two wedding RSVPs in front of us. One, I pray thee, let me be excused. That's what the majority will say. Or how about this one? To the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, I have just received your Majesty's urgent invitation to be present at the marriage supper of your only begotten Son. I hasten to reply, by your grace, I'll be there. P.S. And thank you for the beautiful robe.